just so we can focus our outreach to those committees and boards that haven't responded as well. Does anyone have any questions about the dynamic reports? I want to show what the tabular report looks like as well, but I'm happy to answer any questions about this.
Elise, as we get to the point of analysis, are we going to be able to play with how this lays out? Are we going to have to create maybe another document that shows it in a way that we feel more comfortable with?
These are kind of like the graphs that public input is programmed to show us. I don't think there's much that we can change about those, but what we will also get is this printed list of tabulated data, and this is fake data from when they were just testing the survey in-house among the city staff, but we will get information like this that shows us which advisory board they served on and how they answered every single one of the questions. So then we can go through this and build some of our own charts if the ones here don't satisfy what we're trying to analyze. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry, I can't see everybody on my screen, so I'm kind of just like talking to the
I can help facilitate the queue. So I see Nina has her hand raised next, and then I have mine after
her. I don't have my second screen set up. So Patrick, if you want to like cue people to go, then I can answer whatever questions come up.
Yeah, I can do that. So Nina, go ahead.
Okay, so I think you answered my first question, which was the way these graphs are coming to us is pretty much just the default, and that if we want different charts, we're going to have to build them ourselves. And in particular, one of the things I found myself wishing for was a drop-down menu so that I could see all the responses from a particular board to get a feel for how each board group was responding.
Right.
So that's something that we would have to build for ourselves, is my understanding.
Yeah. When we get all of this data later on, we can parse it out by board and try to determine if there's similar answers between the same boards.
Okay, the second question I have is that I noticed looking through the responses to date that the way we worded the final question in the survey was producing not the sort of results that I had hoped for with that question, and the question is, what didn't we ask that we should have? And what is your answer? People are not understanding that. They're just answering what is the question that we didn't ask. They're not then going on to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's too late or whether we could separate those two things. What's the question that we should have asked and didn't? And then now, please answer that question that we didn't ask, so that people will understand that there's a two-part thing, because the responses that are coming in now don't reflect that understanding at all.
Yeah,
I don't think it will mess with the data too much to do that. If it's something that we can do without, throwing a wrench in the whole thing, I would urge us to consider doing that.
We could probably reach out to Sarah to update it, and then as more people click on the link to fill that out, I believe they will see the updated question. And this is all qualitative here, where we're kind of going to have to piece through each of the responses individually. So I don't imagine that it would cause too much of a data analysis problem. But I do see what you're saying here.
I think that it's pretty easy to tell when people got the question or when they didn't, and they just answered the first half of it and didn't understand that they were then to answer the question. So I would like to see that happen, because I think there's useful information buried in there, and it's too bad that we didn't have it clear right out of the gate but I'd rather fix it now and have the people who have yet to respond have a chance to answer it.
Yeah. Patrick, are you taking notes? Can we make sure that that gets put down?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. And then who was next? Were you next?
I was next, but Nina actually asked my question. It was about how to
Okay.
break it down by boards. So
Okay.
next up, we have Grant and then Al.
Okay.
So go ahead, Grant. Grant, you're currently muted, but if you want to, it's your turn to talk. Okay. So we'll go to Alan and then we'll come back to Grant. Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, Lisa, I'm not sure if you answered my question or not. Is it possible to have crosstabs so we associate any specific comments to boards with those respondents on that board?
Yes. Yes. So in this, when we get our printout, which I don't think this is letting me widen this, but each of the responses will list their board here.
Yes.
And so then after the fact, we can go and look at, this person who answered for the Human Relations Commission also gave all of these responses here. And this probably looks like, this might look overwhelming to process, but I'm familiar with working with data like this, and I'm very willing to like show other people how we can do that.
You can create cross-tabulation tables.
I'm not familiar with that terminology.
Okay, it's just associating with a group on a particular board with specific responses then to questions.
Yeah, we could definitely break it down so that we have like a table just for each of the boards, which would make that easier to do that comparison. And we could also maybe summarize it as what's like, what percentage had this response or that response kind of thing.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah.
And Alan, can you clarify what that's called again? They're called.
I used to, when I was taking stats courses in college, I was using SPSS, Statistical Package for Social Sciences. It was called cross-tabulation tables.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I captured that.
She's shaking her head. She knows. Okay.
I at least understand what you're talking about.
Thanks so much.
So I'll note that. And Grant, I saw that you joined back. Your next step.
Yeah, is everybody getting audio fine?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I just logged out and logged back in. Maybe they'll do it for me. I posted some comments in the Google Docs I'll add later, but surely we can. So getting it may be a couple hundred, it may be all 345 possible respondents, and we don't want to go through each survey particularly, but surely we can get comments per, I say volunteer advisory board, but each board or commission, we can get a grouping. And I think you've all just been talking about that. I just haven't been able to hear you very well. It's been breaking up for me. What is the idea on getting the each board's comments and responses grouped?
I can manage something like that. I know a lot of Excel codes that makes it easy to say like every one of these rows that put neighborhood advisory committee, let's just list all the comments that they gave. So I can certainly facilitate an organization of the data that way.
Yeah, I mean,
I do a lot of that with the work I do too, but maybe in a more really looking at some of the things they're saying per se and theme it. But I agree with you. We've got to put it into some kind of thematic breakdown to see if we have a lot of folks who are saying it was the most awful experience of my life or it was the greatest experience of my life. You know, some of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's all of it's both the quantitative and these qualitative comments, but
Yes.
we want to see the grouping of the qualitative stuff and these comments per each board. We don't need to know who I asked about anonymity, and this one, fine. The only people I can see how City of Asheville did in the end. They said volunteer who you are, and really only a few people did that. By the way, that 70% of people who said don't contact me again, I wish that whether it was about anonymity or saying something about future activities and kind of we want your responses because X, Y, and Z will happen next. That's what I was kind of going for. But what we ended up with was people saying, I don't want to be bothered anymore. But I don't feel like that's a closed door. I think we could just go back with education and get engagement work and take another swipe at this with a different approach if people want to do that. But anyways, that's cool. We want to break. It's each board and commission. Where's the red flags? Where's things looking copacetic in each board and commission, and where's it just kind of neutral?
Right. And that was the point of having the initial question at the beginning of which board are you filling out the survey for. That way we can put that, reorganize that later to get that. And to Stacy's point, you're probably much better at analyzing the qualitative data, whereas I'm very much a quantitative person. So I think our skills will dovetail quite well.
Elise, I was thinking that very same thing. Yes.
Awesome.
And I would say next up we have Stacy and then Nina.
Just one comment. I do want to clarify that if any publishing of this data in whatever format we choose, I do think that we need to keep the comments anonymous. Even though we might know who said it, I don't think we should tell the whole world who said that. And so even though we're probably going to be aggregating a lot of information and stuff like that. Unless we want to get permission, I don't think that we should be publishing people's names.
And that was something that Sarah and I talked about as well. When she prepared this for me, it also includes latitude, longitude, IP address, like stuff that like other people just don't need to have. And this document will be submitted into the public record. So I agree with that as well. And Sarah already cleared these out, but I would also recommend disaggregating it from the individual as well.
Okay, good.
So the comments, you can paraphrase. And if there's some sort of identifying comment, the fact that a comment is attached to a board or commission, people walked into that eyes open.
Right. But and it will still be attached to the board or commission. It just won't be attached to a specific name.
Okay. I mean, we kind of let this one is about anonymity, and that's fine. We kind of let that happen, but engaging with people, it seems like a no-brainer. We're going to engage with people further, but this one was done in pretty much cloaked anonymity. But the comments, we're gonna report on the comments too. Surely we will report on the comments.
Yes, we will.
Yes, that's what we're saying.
We will report on the comments. They just don't necessarily need to be associated, like Jerry Goldberg made this comment, Maggie made this comment. I don't think that the people who filled this out would want their names associated. That
Because I just want to clarify, because I kind of heard Stacy say the comments can reveal, they can be identifying somehow in terms of what they're talking about or something. But
that's not what I meant.
that's fine. So, and then there's only like a dozen or a couple of dozen max people who were willing to say, contact me, and here's my contact information in any case.
right,
Well,
a dozen out of 82. We still have, 300 or so more people to respond, and perhaps more people will identify themselves. I thought that was a good showing of the number of people who would want to be contacted again.
I think so too. But the fact that they are agreeing that they will be contacted doesn't mean that we should put their name out for the whole world to see associated with certain data.
Like I said, if you all want to, if I think it's just obvious, we're going to go back, we're going to report on these findings, and we're going to say, here's a whole new way to engage on these issues, and start and everybody start talking about what's surfaced here, because there's all kinds of stuff that's been surfaced so far. All those questions about the 27, I don't know if it was number 27 in the end, that had the 20 or 30 sub questions, and they were, what impacts do you feel like your board or commission is having? Those are all saying to me, it's really weak what people are feeling. And you can go there right now if you want to, but they're all down there in just disagree or agree. They're not strong. And plenty of them are over and strongly disagree that they're feeling they're making an impact. And the question that is like, there's the recommendation one. City Council values and acts upon this board's recommendations. That one has that's 10% strongly agree. I mean, it's not funny.
That's the point of the survey, is we're going to figure that out. But reporting on this doesn't require that we link someone's name with who said strongly agree versus strongly disagree.
Okay, this one
Hold up.
is an anonymity-oriented survey, but now surely we will invite people to talk about.
Right, that's why people.
So many are answering this way.
Grant, I don't think we're talking about the same thing.
Let me clarify what I'm saying. I'm not talking about anonymity or names. And the next step is when we do promotion, or what I call education and engagement on what we found personally, we're also going to say, come forward. Here's a Zoom meeting first. We're going to meet in person too. Talk about these questions. What else did you mean if you want to come forward and not be anonymous anymore?
Well, those people responded right here and said they didn't want to, and told us they didn't want to be anonymous.
I hear you about this survey. The way it got shaped was it seems like it closed the door to further conversations, but surely that we're not really going to close the door to further conversations. But let's not discuss it further tonight. It sounds like we don't want to discuss this at that point either tonight further, but it's going to come up.
I just want to ask, two things. First, can we try to use the raise hand function so that we can make sure everyone has a chance to speak? And also, if there's an item like this that requires further discussion, it might be good to just identify that, something we want to pick up on Google Groups or outside the meeting, so we can kind of get through everything we have on the agenda tonight.
Are there any other questions specifically about like the data and how it's presented? No. I did have one. I did look through the findings just to kind of see if there's anything curious. And something that I found, I think it was in the demographic questions.
I think Nina had one question, but Elise, if you want to share your insights first.
Yeah, I was just trying to find the question where people identified their race, and I was very shocked to see that 97% of our boards and commission members are white, because clearly that's not the makeup of Asheville. And so I just wanted to highlight that. I'm sorry, I can't find. Oh, here it is. Yes, 97%. So obviously, based on the data that we've got so far, there's definitely improvements to be made on that front. And I do hope that that will end up being one of the recommendations or one of the focus areas that we work on.
Okay, so now I see Nina has her hand raised, and then Stacy.
Okay, so I think that there are two things that we're going to want to look at with this data. I'd like to see that we do an analysis that's chronological, to see over time how people's attitudes change on a particular board, or maybe towards processes or something like that. In other words, are things getting better? Are they getting worse? Are people's sentiments improving, or are they degrading? Are there particular boards where things are going one way or another? I think we can use many of those sentiment questions to detect trends in people's degree of satisfaction or dissatisfaction over time. And I think that that can prove very valuable. The other thing that I'm a little sorry that we're missing in this current iteration of the survey is one of the things that we discussed amongst ourselves before drafting this survey was questions about cross-board synergies or lack of synergy or lack of communication or cooperation or collaboration. We didn't really probe that at all in this survey. And I'll be interested to see whether, as the commentary comes in, whether there's anything there that would lead us to want to follow up on that. So I'd like to keep an eye out for anything that talks about challenges of interboard communication or cooperation or overlap of mission or conflict of mission or anything like that. Just something I'd like us to keep an eye out for going forward.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to your first point about parsing it out by year and kind of tracking those trends. And so we will have these years here, which then I can also use that to kind of sort and parse out the data and show trends over time. So I do think that's doable. And I also recognize that we did leave that out in the survey, unfortunately. I think that was probably just because we had so many questions we're trying to get through, but definitely something valid that we should keep discussing.
Okay, I see that Stacy has her hand raised, and then unless we have any other big comments, it might be good to continue down the agenda.
I don't want to open a can of worms, but I've been doing a lot of racial justice seminars, surveys, workshops, etc. over the past 6 weeks or so, and this delivery system could be problematic in reaching people of color. I don't really understand why that is, but
there's a little echo. Is it me?
It's all of us, I think.
I think that, Grant, I think your mic was causing some echo, so I muted you, but you can unmute yourself.
So that the delivery system may be problematic, and I don't know what the solution would be even prior to doing it this way. I don't know how we could do it, other than maybe if we have access into some of our communities of color to just promote the opportunity to access this survey to anyone you know.
Yes, because we're sending this via email, there certainly might be some biases that get put into the data just by how we present it to people. So there is room to do that in the promotion, pardon me.
So I see Nina, Sharon, and then Nina have their hand raised, and I would just ask that we try to wrap this item up.
Real quick, Ellen and I discussed this on, we have some ideas through CAN, through other neighborhood association, neighborhood leaders. He and I have spent a lot of time when we saw the 90-some% white. And so we've got some ideas, and I believe that's probably our next step once we get through this.
Just a quick
Okay.
note that
Yeah.
that we have 82 early responders. That's skewing the results somewhat as well. And I do, I love your idea, Sharon, and was it Alan or Ted, of reaching out to neighborhood associations. I would be happy to spread the word about this at the Shiloh Neighborhood Association, which I attend regularly, to make sure that those who have served on boards and commissions are aware of and are invited to participate.
Okay. Grant, you have your hand raised, and then I think we'll move on to the next item.
Yeah, super fast. My other initial key takeaways for that, the education is unusual. That there's a lot of educated people in Asheville post high school, but 68% being graduate or professional. It means it's kind of like, if these are people who take the initiative, that might be kind of a sign that these are some initiative oriented people that fill out the first 80 responses. But if it keeps going, it means that's a sign of a lot of wealth. And I asked about an income question, a net worth question. That didn't happen, but that's a sign that people are quite wealthy. At least the ones who respond so far. And plus, if you're doing things 9 to 5, like go to meetings, long meetings like this, most working people can't go there, even if it's remote. So that's another equity issue, maybe area to examine, is how to get people who are working class, who and this has come up before. There can be a mix of very educated, successful people, and maybe it's wrong. Maybe the results will be really bad if people aren't as educated and have specialized experiences related to each BAB. Or it's good for people who are just interested in citizenship to get on these boards and commissions. So that's a big area.
Yeah, I agree, and definitely we'll see how this plays out over the rest of our survey period, and I imagine that we will definitely make a comment on this when we present our final results. I'm ready to stop sharing my screen if everyone's cool with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So Nina, I saw you had your hand raised.
Yeah, just one final point on this education issue. First of all, I wouldn't always equate higher education with higher income. Just anecdotally speaking, they don't always correlate. And the other thing is, there are the selection process and the topics for various different boards, in some cases, definitely have clearly selected for people with expertise in a given area. And it doesn't surprise me that the responses so far show a 60%, graduate level education, because these are the folks who presumably have a level of relevant experience and training in a given field area. do we want to, recommend that boards be more balanced in terms of their constituency? Maybe under some circumstances, yeah, we probably do. But I'm personally not at all surprised that that's what we're seeing in early returns, because that's what's been selected for. Whether that's always the best criteria or not is open for discussion, and that's something we will want to talk about when we get around to making recommendations, for sure, because of course there are equity issues, and of course it's good to have a variety of different voices heard most of the time. But it certainly doesn't come as any surprise to me that there's a high representation of folks with advanced degrees in these boards. In fact, the fact that it's 60% and not 75% or 80%, is probably a healthy thing.
Yeah. And we can certainly break that down too by board. And so we could see, oh, well, this board kind of needs that. But then boards like the Neighborhood Advisory Committee and the Reparations Commission and like multimodal or something, I would imagine those we would hope to see a better mix of. And we can certainly figure that out during our data analysis.
Okay. So, at this point, just a time check. We're at 6:10 now. We go until 7. So, we're moving a little slowly, but we'll get through what we can today. I think we should move on to the next item, which is promoting survey participation. I at the last meeting, I think it might be helpful for us to discuss the press release that Ted drafted and shared with the group. If Ted, would you like me to share that on my screen and you'd like to talk about it for a minute? You're muted, Ted.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. Well, give me just a second. I'll pull that up. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Can you zoom in a little bit? It's impossible.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
That's better. And
Maybe
scroll
if I
down a
narrow
little.
the window.
Yeah.
How's that?
Better.
I can make it a little larger, but I won't be able to fit it all on the screen.
I've just zoomed in on my own screen so I can see it pretty well.
Okay. So we can all just take a minute to read this, but then let's see if anyone has any specific feedback. I think the goal is that this could be kind of an announcement to help us share the work we've done with the survey with the wider public. I'm seeing that Grant and Sharon both have their hands raised, but I'm not sure if Grant, if your hand was up from before. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just say real fast that this is sort of saying what came about earlier on, and it ends. We're going to end this soon. We're not going to discuss this any further. The part I agreed to, and I've made this comment that previously, is I can't see it in small type, but Jason, just the idea that this was trying to do some examination. The survey is a step in examining the performance of these volunteer advisory boards and satisfaction among the current members and past alumni. And we learned about what recommendations make it through to council, what do they act on a little bit. But this is a statement that says we're closing. The next thing that's going to happen is we're going to close this, and we'll never talk about the anything else about this ever again. And I don't think that should be the message. And I've already advocated for next steps, and I'm glad we're at least going to discuss that. But that's what it read to me. That was the first read, and you all can interpret this however you want. But I don't think we should leave assumptions out there, because there's already been so many assumptions about this work, that this is an opportunity for innovation. That's creating new value. We're creating new and renewing value. Innovation wasn't exactly used as terminology with City of Asheville when this launched, but we can do that now. We can redefine what this work has been about and what the possibilities are for the future for the people of Asheville.
Okay, and I see Sharon and Nina have their hand raised. However, I want to let Ted have an opportunity to introduce this letter a bit first and to help guide our discussion, if that's okay. So go ahead, Ted.
Thanks, Patrick. And Grant, I think you're projecting this has nothing to do with closing the work of the working group. It's simply meant to promote the survey by it may attract some board members and commissioners that we missed, that we weren't able to collect emails for. But the sole purpose of this press release is to promote the survey, make its presence known to the general public, but more specifically to those who might want to answer the survey who were not contacted because we didn't have their emails. Again, going to purpose, it is a very narrowly defined purpose, and it has nothing to do, nor do I think it should have anything to do, with the future work of the commission, the direction that the commission should be going, or anything like that. It's simply to promote the survey.
Okay. I think next up we have Sharon and then Nina.
Yeah, thank you, Ted, for that. When I first read it, I didn't have time to focus on it. Who's our audience? If we were going to promote it for people that we're trying to get to, were on boards and commissions, are on boards of commissions, it doesn't say that. I think we need more clarity on what our point is, what the focus is. I get the purpose on the paragraph that we have purpose. I just think has a little too much verbiage in it for me. I think if we just condensed it more and decide who our audience actually is and focus more on that audience. If it's for people like me that have been spaced out for a year and all of a sudden figure out that there's a survey going on, I go, oh, I didn't know that. Where is it? Or if we're looking for people, the general public, to say, hey, we'd like everybody to be attuned to this is going on and FYI. So I don't know how we get that in there, but I kind of sort of see it, but I think it just needs to be clarity a little bit more.
Thank you, Sharon. So next we have Nina and then Stacy and then Alan. So go ahead, Nina.
Okay, I call attention to the second sentence here. The survey is part of an ongoing effort by a working group that the city commissioned to advise it on how to improve the workings of the system of boards and commissions that are charged with providing advice on issues ranging from affordable housing to urban forestry. This is the meat of the matter. And note the term ongoing effort. This is not the last step. This is the first step. I think it might be helpful to say that. This survey is the first step in an ongoing effort It's useful. The second paragraph gives some backstory about how we arrived at this. I think it's helpful for context. I think it's possible that we could do an edit on this and tighten up the language a little bit so that it's a little punchier and sentences are shorter and not quite so hard to parse. But I don't think in any way that this explanation here shuts any future activities down. And in fact, it points to the future, which is that we are creating an advisory set of recommendations. That's the ultimate goal of our and function of this group as originally charged. And I think that that's the point that's made here. So, you know, I think there may be some editing that we want to do to this, but I think that as an introduction to the survey and its purpose, which is data collection so that we can further our process of creating recommendations, I think it does a fine job. Do we want a sentence that says there will undoubtedly be future opportunities for input? We can do that if we want to, but I think keeping it focused on why this survey has been put out and what function it is intended to serve for our mission is the important part of this message. And I think the bones of all that are in this draft.
Thank you, Nina. So next I have Stacy and then Alan and then Grant.
First off, Ted, thank you. I know writing the first draft of anything is the worst job in the world. So thank you, so that we all have something to criticize. Otherwise, I have a question. Do y'all think the call to action should be in the first paragraph that, you know, we're trying to reach these types of people, and if you are one of them, please access this survey at these links? And because in my journalism background, what you want, the most important thing is in the first paragraph. And the most important thing we're trying to do is to get people to do the survey. So just when we start to play around with this a little bit more, think about that.
Thank you, Stacy. Alan, your hand is down, but you were up next.
Yes. I'd like to suggest that perhaps there's two kinds of messaging that might be taken on by the subgroup. This is one of them, and that is to promote and try and engage more participants to take the survey. But the second one would be to the broader community. And there's been questions asked about, I know the ACT addressed this early on in the year, but more recently, there's been questions raised by Sarah Hernansky, I believe it is. And perhaps this group might want to draft something for the community so they're aware of where we're at right now. And Hernansky, thank you, Nina. So the community is aware of what's going on with this group and where we're, the directions that we're going in the future. So I think perhaps two kinds of messages may be considered from this group, from the subgroup.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, I'll just suggest, I know Grant has his hand raised, but I think it might be good for us to quickly identify what next step we want to take. Is this, do we put it in a Google Doc to do revisions by some date? Might be good to identify our next step here. Go ahead, Grant.
So that's better because I keep hearing that what Alan just said is a problem somehow to share. It's to share with the media, and I said this a month ago or so. Share with the media what really happened. It's not to promote me or anything or anybody else or that worked on this, but just the facts that we're garnering from the survey that's good. Start with the survey findings because we found some ground truth, and it's not us, our opinions. It's what's coming back from the survey. We're going to announce these findings. We're going to start the very first few slides about just the facts about what the survey is revealing. And I think we're going to do a webinar. I think that's one of the first things to get up there. But what's good, let me say what's good about what I'm saying. And Nina helped me see this. It's ongoing, and it is, we are commissioned to advise on how to improve the workings of the system of boards and commissions. And I remember Shanika saying, I want to work on the system, the systematic issues, the system level issues, and I'm completely about that. And that's an opening to go towards, so an announcement to get every possible response from a voluntary advisory board, current member or alumni. That was really great. Alan did that. This could be, there's parts in here that can go to the community directed the press release too. But this one, we're just going to send out that reminder. We had a date on that, but I don't know. What's for that reminder? And it can go to the press too for all I care. But that's really good. That sounds better to have two different, I call it education and engagement directions. And that's all. This is the beginning of what I've been asking about. What is the further work beyond the survey and announcing the survey? It sounds like there's going to be more going on.
Okay. I think at this point, I would be happy to take the document Ted provided, put it into a Google Doc that anyone could suggest edits to. Could we just do like a thumbs up if that sounds like a good next step? Yep, seems people are supportive. And do we want to set like a deadline for edits? Like we could do the end of next week, or we could do the middle of next week. Let's do support for Friday of next week. Thumbs up.
It's also Thanksgiving next week. I just wanted to remind people of that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, if we're going to get this done, we should get it done before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Personally, I think like Tuesday, and and then get it out on Wednesday, and hope that somebody sees it during Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think it might be hard to do it by through the holiday. I see a few people have their hands raised, but I want to let Ted speak first, and then Elise, and then Grant.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether we want to try to begin coordinating with the city to get it released through the city rather than like try to do it independently. For a couple of reasons. One is it probably has more chance of making it into the Asheville Citizen Times if it's a release from the city. And secondly, I think it's just good protocol to do that.
Okay. Elise?
I was just going to say, even if we finish our part of it by Tuesday, I don't think that it would like immediately go to press anyway. So yeah, even if we got it done on Tuesday, it's not like it's going to be in the news on Wednesday. Just keeping that in mind.
In fact, there's no guarantee
Grant?
that it ends up in news at all. I mean, just to be realistic about this, frankly, it might be better to just send a bunch of letters to relevant reporters at the four, main outlets, and hope that someone takes an interest.
Right. Grant, I see you have your hand raised.
Well, what Ted was saying, this was that Karen was talking about our next steps as to her focus was the recommendations. Let's talk to the city staff about our recommendations first, what they think are kind of what it sounded like was what do they think our recommendations are. That part, we get to independently make our assessment and recommendations and share it with City of Asheville, but we aren't quite there yet. So this one, get interested in survey 1. Let's do that press release. And it goes to City of Asheville 100%. Send it to Sarah and say it's for Dawa and Ben and anybody else you want involved. And here's what we think we can say about boosting some interest to get every last possible survey response, survey 1. However, I'm going to take some of these common agreed upon language elements from this press release, improve the workings of the system of boards, commissions in its ongoing work, and start this community press release. We don't have to be in a rush about that one because it's Thanksgiving, and we're going to focus on this press release about getting every last possible response for survey 1. Great, I'm in complete agreement. But Alan said let's work on a community message, and that will also go to City of Asheville for their engagement and their promotion because they are they have the brand on this, and they are going to be a great channel to release information through. But I like this independent element to a certain degree. I'm going to keep this independent element, but we definitely want to work with City of Asheville. We're going to talk about reestablishing what our relationship is with City of Asheville, I think, too.
Okay. So, at this point, I know we want to create a Google Doc. I'm not sure exactly what deadline is going to make sense. So maybe we just let's just get it on there. We'll give everyone a chance to make a round of revisions and then see where we're at. I don't know if that'll be prior to Thanksgiving or the week after, but I think we can get it done. Does anyone have any other thoughts on the process to get this survey ready to go?
And we could just say, expect more. If this is our first press release, we can say expect more to follow. Something like that. Just a few words about expect something else to happen.
Okay. So just a time check now. We're at 6:30 now, so we're feeling a little time pressure with our current agenda. And at this point, I think we had some discussions about what order we want to go through the agenda items for the rest of the meeting. And I think kind of in respect to the group and everyone's time, I want to ask you all which item we want to do next. We've reached the point of the agenda where there's items 5, 6, and 7, right? And from when I looked at the agenda last night, talking about logistical details is what we should be discussing next. There were some edits made to the agenda today. And I'm not entirely sure how to make a call. So I would propose that we just do a majority vote for which of those 2 items we do next, whether it's...
Wait a minute, Patrick. You're intervening. Yeah. You are intervening by putting that vote up. If someone else wanted to make a change to that agenda, they could have done so in advance of this meeting. The only thing I want to say about the next steps work was what does this initial assessment and recommendations report look like to you all? And that's something we can create a Google Doc on because I've given you all a plan. I've given you kind of a plan outline on just some of my ideas, and they're actually, Patrick, you started to engage on what a next steps plan might look like. So that's all, man. I mean, it doesn't have to. You don't have to vote it out and put it aside. But I will try to start a Word doc about what this first assessment and recommendations plan report might look like. It's an introduction. It's an executive summary introduction. What are the main data areas that we're analyzing, and what there's going to be an opinion point where we where we say, this is what we thought, and there's equity issues here, there's some performance issues that people don't think that their recommendations are getting through. That's the most I think that we can really discuss on all of that. But I'm saying it's out there. We can work on it next time. I understand people really want to get to logistics, so let's go there. But we didn't have to. I said to Elise, how are we going to discuss? How are we going to talk about which order the agenda goes in a few days ago? So I just in the end I said
to me at all. That's not accurate.
We not spoken by email, or I think it was in Google Docs. That's fine if you don't remember that, but we did. We talked about, do you initiate the agenda and do you lock it in? Because at first it was locked and nobody could make changes. And
that was unintentional, and I told the group that was unintentional, and I did not mean to do that, and I didn't check my email during those 4 hours because I was with somebody, and I fixed it as soon as I could. I could have fixed it at 1 in the morning when I saw the email, but
I was going to say, I realized it wasn't intentional.
You sound very accusatory, Grant. You sound very accusatory when you talk.
And I'm telling you what happened after we realized that you weren't locking it purposefully. I said, by the way, but let's talk about who gets to control positioning of which agenda item before meeting. Is it just one person? I don't think so. So I didn't bring that up. I don't know what your was. I thought you said you didn't respond, and I believe that was okay, and it was there for everybody else to see. But it's there now. It's on an agenda. I think that we can talk about what the assessment and recommendations report. I call it a report. I guess it's going to be a report. It's not going to be 20 pages long. It might be 6 to 12 pages long. But we can outline that. We can start outlining that. The rest of these things, it's almost 7 already, and everybody wants to get to the logistics part. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Grant. I appreciate you understanding where I'm coming from. I think that the logistical piece is something we need to discuss. It was on the last agenda and we didn't get to it. So, at this point, we'll move on to that item, which is number 6 on the agenda. And I know that Alan and Sharon wanted to speak on this item first. So I'd like to give them an opportunity to speak, and then we'll do raised hands and go around the room. I really do want everyone to raise hands and speak one at a time so that we're not talking over each other. So Alan and Sharon, you all can present.
All right. Hey, everybody. Okay, I'm going to go first, and I'll be quick. And why I think I've laid this out and made it kind of clear in Google Docs, this is what I'm used to working with in the boards and commissions and other boards I'm involved with, and it creates equity with everybody to have a say. And I personally work in my boards and commissions and other commissions with parliamentary procedures, which is Robert's Rules of Order. And Robert's Rules of Order is a standard for facilitating discussions and group decision-making. Parliamentary procedures set of rules for conducting orderly meetings that accomplish goals fairly. Now, I understand there's other methodology, and as I've stated, this is the only one I know. Why Robert's Rules of Order work with me is, first of all, the chair, we have a chair and a vice chair and a secretary. The chair and the vice chair set the agenda. And what creates the agenda is what's been on the meeting previously. We have old business and new business. So it creates an inclusive space for everyone. There's no interrupting of individuals having the floor, being recognized by the chair, a motion, a second. I think everybody's familiar with Robert's Rules of Order. The chair will control the meeting, and each speaker must be recognized by the chair. For me, having been several years on 2 boards, we've gotten a lot of work done, and I like to see us proceed with that. And that's why I'm going to propose a motion after Alan gets, and we have our discussion, that we head towards Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon. Alan, go ahead.
I just want to compliment and supplement what Sharon was saying, and I want to make a case for leadership, because designated leadership, because they will provide direction for our future steps. And I think having a leader or leadership will contribute to the group's mission, help guide the discussion, and move from idea generation to implementation as we move forward. And I like the idea of chair, vice chair, and secretary, with that group kind of doing the goal setting, agenda making, clarifying, summarizing, and verbalizing the consensus. Finally, I want to just say that, you know, having leadership will facilitate the flow of conversation as we move forward to achieve a good balance, so all members of the group have an opportunity to participate in a meaningful way. So I'm proposing, along with Sharon, that we adopt Robert's Rules of Order as the way we conduct our business. And secondly, that we have an elected chair, vice chair, and secretary for this group, which will provide us, again, more structure and better direction as we move forward to our goals. So that is I guess that would be a motion that I'm putting forward, that we first adopt Robert's rules, and then have 3 elected individuals from this group to serve as, I guess, the leadership of going forward. And then I have some ideas, and if the individuals are interested in taking on those positions, I would like to put that forth afterwards. So I guess my first proposal is, or a motion, if we want to move in that direction, to have Robert's rules adopted, and then have a leadership group of chair, vice chair, and secretary.
Okay. So, you know, what I think we should do next is we should kind of go around, give everyone one chance to speak. I want to ask everyone to speak, you know, relatively brief so we can hear from everyone and not to talk over one another. So just raise your hand when you want to speak in order, and we'll just kind of go through the list. But first up, I have Grant, and then Nina, and then Barbara.
So completely opposed that motion for the following reasons, and I've posted them in the comments in the chat. That we just talked about equity, for example, and Robert's Rules of Order is old school, quite frankly. Until we are demonstrating that we talk innovation. This is a moment where you're going to walk the talk about the transformation work that's going on at City Hall. That's what is going on with Deborah Campbell and this mayor and this council. If you're saying we got to do Robert's Rules of Order because there's a crisis of leadership, and this teeny pool of people, this is a teeny representation of the people of Asheville here on this webinar tonight. We're white. We just talked about which race is represented with this work with voluntary advisory boards. It's just some white. It's not. Maybe, I don't know. It may not just be white people, but it looks like some white people mainly. But so the equity of just doing this tonight without doing it, we just talked about press releases. Are we engaging with the public before we make this move? No, we're not. I asked Sharon and Alan, Sharon specifically, the last meeting, are you planning to make this move? Are you planning to make a motion like this? She said, refused to comment. And I talk about an open design thinking workshop where we can start just doing it all with Post-its or just putting out ideas on what's the strategy statement, what should this work encompass, allow people to walk into that, because that's how City of Asheville started this. They said, okay, the 4 advisory boards not looking too good. let's throw out some ideas on other options, and they allowed that to occur. We should do the same. That was the precedent at the beginning. I think when you guys say leadership, it's sort of an old school version of leadership, and I hope we don't go there tonight. It isn't right. It needed to be shared with the city of Asheville that this move is coming up, and I asked for transparency from Sharon at the last meeting. She refused to say if she was going to make a motion like this. It doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit with this city hall. And I think where we've gone so far, it's been rough. And I talk about a forming, storming, norming, and performing set of phases about getting a team up to speed on innovation product. We've got the innovation product. To just say it's going to be 3 people deciding everything from now on, it just doesn't match to what's been going on. And it's the good stuff that is outside of what felt like friction. It's been inefficient. Think about the good stuff and the good ideas that came up this way so far. We can allow people to see this process, announce that we're looking for leaders and we want more participants. We are looking for structure. But we just stopping that. I've talked several times about a strategy statement that's going to detail what this group is actually about before we try and take it over. Before 3 people try and take it over. To completely oppose the motion, I think we can pass.
Okay. Thank you, Grant. So next up, I have Nina, then Barbara, and then Ted. So Nina, go ahead.
Okay. I think we do face a challenge here, which is that we have 11 people on this call, and we don't really know how many other people are out there who are eager to engage with this. But we do know that we started at the beginning of this process with something like 60 participants. And over the course of 6 months or so, we have now I hasten to say, hardcore, badass group of people who have stuck with this very sloggy process. Now, I'm not utterly persuaded that Robert's Rules of Order is the best way to proceed with this. We have 11 people here. 3 officers out of 11 seems top heavy to me. I do think that there is great value in having a structured process for creating an agenda, but the notion that even with Robert's Rules of Order that the agenda is immutable and not subject to revision through the will of the body is incorrect. Every time an agenda is set, there's an opportunity to amend the agenda. And, so I think that there may be some value right now in making a decision about maybe 2 leadership roles and revisiting it on a regular basis going forward. Maybe we have rotating leadership. The question that I have is who's going to sign up for these leadership roles? And are they willing to abide by that structural agreement? So I would propose that we do a Robert's Rules light, which is a little bit more forgiving and a little bit less rigid. I don't think that we have the numbers here that really require the crowd control element in order to make progress, which Robert's Rules is really intended to do. When you have a body of 300 legislators and you're trying to get something to happen, Robert's Rules is a very effective tool. But I think that we can, for example, I've been watching the work of the Reparations Commission, and they are operating on a modified light Robert's Rules system, and it seems to work very well for them. And their discussions are orderly and constructive, and they flow well. And they make it up occasionally as they go along, and they do that by checking in with the votes of the people who are present. Can we do it a little bit differently this way? And everyone either agrees or disagrees, and they go by that. I think we can follow that same model, being flexible as we go along. As far as inviting other people to participate, I'm all for it. But frankly, you know, what we've seen so far is that there just aren't that many people who are willing to pin their efforts to this particular mast going forward. And so they also don't have the history of how we got to where we are. And, you know, there may be some education and engagement to be done there. And I welcome that as an opportunity, but I do not welcome it as an opportunity that slows us in moving forward with the task ahead of us. So I'd like to be moving forward. I approve of the idea of electing leadership and maybe consider having it rotate. And now I'll shut up.
Thank you, Nina. So next up we have Barbara and then Ted.
I will say that because something old is considered outdating makes me feel kind of strange since I'm ancient. But Robert's Rules been around a long time. I've been in umpteen meetings with Robert's Rules, and I agree with Nina and with Sharon and Alan that a structure is needed. That does not mean that we have to be hard and fast, but we do need to have the ability for each and every one to participate. And if we need to make a change, Lord knows that can be done. This idea that it's going to close everybody out or we're going to add this and that or detract from that is a bunch of bull. I've been on too many commissions, too many boards, and in too many meetings without structure. And I can tell you it takes 400 years to get something done that should have been done in 15 minutes. So without it, you're floundering. I'm 100% in starting out like we've said with a light sort of Robert's Rules. But there's a reason it's been around, and I'm sure there's been millions of meetings run by it and stuff way more complicated than what we're trying to do here. So I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we have Ted.
Yeah, I want to. Well, first of all, I do think that our work would benefit from more structure. We've been going along in sort of an ad hoc mode, and I think it's useful to step back and see, you know, like where we've been, how we got here. Our initial meetings were basically directed by the city's consultant. And then we dropped back to not having formal city support, and we've been operating in this sort of ad hoc mode. I'm wondering, though, whether it would be beneficial to wait until we resume meeting with city support in order to take this step. And I say this for a couple of reasons. One is that I'm wondering whether our reduced numbers is somewhat of a function of us now operating outside of the scope of the city's organization and purview. And once we do start meeting again with city support, whether we'll find that that more people are coming on board, because I'm concerned about taking this step with only this core group, and that others who may still be interested don't get a chance to participate in this decision. So that's one reason. The other is, and I'll like to remind the group that we are a creature of the city. We are not an independent organization, just, like deciding to advise the city. If we were to go in that direction, I can tell you that city staff would perceive this working group as going rogue, and we would basically lose all credibility. So I think we need to keep in mind that we are a creature of the city, and I think we need to do things under city auspices. Maybe we can do an interim adoption of Robert's Rules of Order Light, and maybe perhaps even do an interim election of officers, with the understanding that once we resume meetings with staff support, that we revisit, and particularly if we find that our numbers expand significantly at that point, that we come back to this issue.
Thank you, Ted. I think just for the sake of time, I think we're just going to go around once. I have a few things I'd like to say, but before I do, I want to see, does Elise or Stacy, do you have comments you want to add on this? Go ahead, Stacy.
Thank you, Patrick. I will just say that having gone through hours of Robert's Rules training, I've worked under Robert's Rules, Bob's Rules, Bobby's Rules, and Hey You Rules. And, it's all about respect for the group and making sure that every voice is heard and that no one takes over the meeting that shouldn't take over the meeting. That no one takes over the meeting, I should say. It is about equity if it is done the right way. No one loses an opportunity to speak. And as to what Nina said, no agenda is immutable. As always, a draft agenda. And I think that's been very clear throughout this whole process over the last 6 weeks or so, that there has been numerous opportunities for input. I do think that there needs to be, we are a stagecoach with 9 horses here, and somebody's got to hold onto the reins, or else the horses aren't going to go in a direction that's workable. So we do need some kind of structure that would help us move together as a group to get us to the goals that we want to succeed in.
Thank you, Stacy. Elise?
I agree. I feel like we need some stability to really make this group more effective. I mean, I think we got a lot done getting that survey 1 out, but it took us a long time to do it. And I'm hoping that we can pick up the pace a little bit, because I know there's a lot of ideas that people want to pursue. So I do support having a more structured system here. Not the Robert's Rules tight, but yeah, the light. And that's what I have to comment on that. But I do want to say that I apologize for interrupting earlier, but I won't tolerate someone accusing me unfairly as being obstructionist. So, but I will raise my hand in the future, and I apologize for that.
So I was.
Wait. No. So look, we're coming to the end of the meeting, and we can't be arguing at this point. So, I'm going to make my comments on this idea, and then we can make a motion. We can see where everyone stands. So, my thoughts are, I've been doing work to facilitate the group to this point. Because of that, I've heard from a lot of people who have been hesitant to participate, partly because our efforts seem so disorganized. So, I think if we want to do work that's going to actually be effective, we need to, I'm not saying that we can't all have our personal opinions and we can't speak those to the city, but as a group, we kind of have to come together and respect each other's time and figure out where we do have alignment. And that's what this group should be about. So, just from my perspective, I'm not a guy who typically likes structure and Robert's rules and all that. But where we are at this point, I think we need a little structure, a decision-making process for sure. The city didn't set any of that up for us, so we have to do it ourselves. So, that's what I say on that. And I think now I want to turn it back to Alan and Sharon to see if we can get a motion. I just want to see, do we have a path forward here or not? Alan, you are muted.
Oh, sorry. I can start if that's all right with you, Sharon.
Yes.
Okay. Again, I'd like to go back to how I started my part of the conversation, and that is that we, number one, adopt either Robert's Rules or Robert's Rules Light as a way of putting structure to our meeting. And secondly, I do propose that we have leadership in the way of a chair, vice chair, and a secretary who would be responsible for note taking. And that would be my first motion. And then I do have a follow-up. So I'm going to ask, is there a second out there for that?
What was the motion, Alan?
I propose that we adopt either Robert's Rules or Robert's Rules Light for our meeting structure, and that we adopt some kind of leadership in the way of a chair, vice chair, and secretary to provide direction for the group going forward. So that is my motion, and I was going to ask, is there a second to that?
I will second it.
Okay. Patrick, you want to go ahead and way of showing?
We have to.
Yeah.
We've had
Yeah. So I'll take that. I hear a motion. I hear a second. I need to see, I guess, a thumbs up from everyone who's in support of that motion. All in favor, I need to see a thumbs up. So, and I'm just going to read off names so I can see it later. I see myself. I see Elise. I see Stacy, Sharon, Nina, and Alan. Okay. So
And
that's
I'm a
in favor.
yes.
And then Barbara. Okay. So all those opposed? Grant. Ted, I didn't capture your vote properly. Were you in favor? Alan was in favor. Okay. So, I record that as, I can count everyone, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I see 8 in favor, 1 opposed. So that motion carries.
I do have a follow-up motion now, and that is as far as providing the structure for leadership.
Okay.
Could I put that out on the floor and then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And that is, I think we need a chair, vice chair, and secretary. And I'm proposing that Stacy Anderson, who did a great job with the survey and got us actually through that process, serve as chair, and Elise did an amazing job in putting together the the survey data, and I'd love to have her serve as a vice chair for the group. And then as secretary, Patrick, you've done, I've been with you for several months as our note taker and kind of responsible for the agenda and all, putting that together online. So I'd like to ask you to be secretary. So that is my motion going forward on leadership. Any seconds?
Okay.
Normally how it would go is second and then discussion, and then we can amend the motion.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I think is a bit odd here is that we're nominating specific people, and I think that we should agree to creating the positions first and then allow people to nominate themselves or another person, accept the nomination, and then vote that way.
All right, that works.
Okay. Without names, then have in a leadership role the chair, vice chair, and secretary in the leadership roles.
Right.
That's
So okay, I'll take that as a motion in a second. So I'm going to do a vote again. We'll do thumbs up in favor.
I think we need discussion here.
Okay, we can take a step back. We're going to do discussion, and I do want to know we're over time at this point. So, we can discuss it now, we can extend time, but we got to be quick, or we can push things to our next meeting. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go hands in order. Everyone can speak once. You got to be brief though. Okay. So I'm going to do Grant, then Nina, then Ted. Grant, you're muted. Grant, I'm not able to take people off mute. I can mute everyone if we start to talk over each other, but I can't unmute anyone. You should be able to unmute yourself. While Grant sorts that out, I'm going to go to Nina, then Ted. We'll come back to Grant.
All right. I think it's important that we have volunteers for these roles who put themselves forward. I would, I also would suggest that we don't need an official secretary. We're recording these meetings. People can take notes. We have the chat is transcribed. It just seems like, to me, the purpose of having a vice chair is to act when the chair isn't there. I think we can wing that and appoint a chair if the chair is missing at any given meeting. And I think part of our agreement about how we go forward here is that after a certain number of meetings, let's say 2 or 3, that we revisit this structure and give people an opportunity to decide whether they want to continue doing things this way or whether they want to try something else, just so that there's some mechanism to allow us to evolve this process if it's not serving us well.
Okay. So I'm going to do Ted, then I'll do Grant, and I see Sharon is after.
Okay, I want to, first of all, I agree with Nina about giving people an opportunity to volunteer. I think that nominations should be postponed to the next meeting. I think that we might be able to create the positions today. I would speak in favor of a secretary because particularly when we resume under city direction, I think we are going to want to have minutes, and I think we're going to want to be able to post those minutes publicly. So we'll need somebody to take notes and have minutes, and I think a vice chair does function as like the vice president. Steps in when needed. So I don't see any harm in creating that position.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Grant, do you want to try to unmute again? I'm not sure. I definitely, there you go.
You can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not a Google Meet person. So, you guys kind of lost this, like the point of announcing this idea of organizing a group that a number of folks have said do the legitimate thing about City of Asheville, even if we're in this weird limbo state with them right now, and you're going ahead, you're heading down this road of organizing something that we don't really understand. We talked about some tasks, a press release that's about Voluntary Advisory Board current members and alumni try and get the last possible responses in Survey 1, a community press release. Maybe we'll start looking at outlining of the first assessment and recommendations. And somewhere in there, we'll start picking up some more people. And this whole problem of restarting engagement and showing people that there's something interesting to get involved with, to allow the equity issue of who else might want to get involved in this take place, then talk about an organization, because we did a little bit of work on what the mission and strategy statement for a new organization might look like. Then somebody can say, I'm gonna be the chair, vice chair, and treasurer for whatever commitment, a year or two, because it's an official City of Asheville organization that gets applications in an open process. I hear you guys are urgent. This is urgent need to get this organized and stuff, but it's working. I will let Patrick continue in this project management role. I call what he's doing the project manager. If he needs more help, I'll be the first one to help and just help make this work more smoothly. But we went way past 7. It got right at 7, and we should be firm about containing big issues like this. That it was kind of out there on the agenda. We're going to go into leadership and structure and logistics. But I asked Sharon, are you going to put this up are you going to do a motion to start picking officers and going to Robert's Rules of Order? And we should have announced this. We should have tried to announce this, but we don't have a platform to speak to people, to let people engage with this. And I heard people start that conversation about what's the most equitable thing to do, what represents the City of Asheville and the people of Asheville best. And then Alan kind of brought up another motion. And I think we need to put this aside and take another look at it after a little bit more develops. I mean, we can get through more tasks now because we've gone through the forming, norming, storming, performing phases, and I swear we can get through to a bigger meeting with more eyes on this and more interest, and just start again because it's gone past. Thanks.
Right. Yeah, we are past time, but Sharon, you had your hand raised, and then
Yeah.
I think we need to come to some next step here.
This was on the first agenda. We didn't make it on the first agenda. I stated in Google Docs what my very clearly where I wanted to go. There was no surprise on where I wanted to go. I do believe we need a secretary. We need Patrick to log us in and keep the notes if he'll stay in that place to do it. And a chair and a vice chair work together effectively to help each other out, help set agendas and work with each other. So I see the need most definitely for 3 of us or 3 of people to work in that position, whomever they are. Now, if we want to set how long that is and work it out, but I do know, as you stated, Patrick, for sure that there are people that will not join us because of how we are running our current way. They will not join us. I know this for a fact. I got lots of emails on it. And that's why I want to get more people in to join us. If we show some order, then I'm sure we're going to get some more people in here to participate.
Okay. So I'm going to go to Alan now, and I'm just hoping we have to figure out whether we're going to do a motion, whether we're going to vote on it, or what our next step is.
Well, every organization I've ever been with in the city, and that's 2 boards, have always had officers, a chair and vice chair elected by the members, number 1. Secondly, and they've always operated, including city council, by either Robert's Rules or Robert's Rules Light, but we always function with that kind of structure. But I'd like to call for the vote because it's getting late and we've been at this for a while.
Yeah, I'm happy to facilitate that. So the motion you made was to create the 3 positions, right? And we're not
Right.
putting names on them, and that was seconded by Sharon. So let's just see, can we do a vote? Can we do a thumbs up if you're in favor of that motion as presented today? Create a chair, vice chair, and secretary.
I'm in favor.
Thank you, Barbara. So I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in favor. All opposed? Hands up. That's great. All right. So that's 8-1. That the motion carries. We're going to establish a chair, vice chair, and secretary. At this point, I think we're getting pretty far past. Does the group think we can close business for today, and we'll figure out nominations as part of our next meeting to start the agenda? Would that sound reasonable to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, I want to close. I just want to thank everyone for going past our time. Generally, I don't want to do that because, we all have lives, we all have plans outside of this. So I apologize that we went over. But I want to thank everyone for, again, sharing space, raising hands, allowing us to self-organize this meeting and make some progress. So I just want to extend my appreciation to everyone for
He froze.
Patrick, you froze right at that
I
moment.
froze.
Obviously,
I'm not sure where I froze.
Who's trying to tell us something? I lost
think
my
it's-
connection.
I think it's time for us all to go. So I'll just say thank you all for being here, and we'll meet again soon.
How about people nominate themselves in our email things if they would like to serve?
Yeah, I'm happy to introduce a thread on the Google group so everyone who's not here today is aware that we've made these decisions, and then we can figure out how we want to go through the process of nomination to settle it at our next meeting. And we'll also coordinate when we're going to meet next based on the availability.
It's worth noting that according to Robert rules, you can't really take votes like this unless you have a quorum about organizing. And so, there's some question as to whether this was a Roberts approved way to initiate Robert's rules.
We're not an official board or body, right? So
I'm aware. I'm just
as
saying.
a group, we need to self-determine how we want to
I
proceed.
agree. I'm not
I
arguing.
think that sounds like the "Hey You" rules that I've worked under sometimes.
blush.
It's a tough one, and it's some. Did I anger her? Oh, good. There you go. It is a decision that I think we need to think about before the next meeting, that if we're going to have a set of Robert's rules, however we tend to use them, how are we going to determine quorum? How are we going to determine when we move forward if our group is constantly changing in size, etc.? So
yeah, I think those are all good questions. So let's pick this up on the Google group between meetings and see what we can figure out. Okay.
thank y'all.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.